Hi everybody and welcome to A Manager's Journey with me, Josh Richard. Today's video is just an audio version of the most recent blog post on the A Manager's Journey blog. A link to both will be in the description below. Any support for the blog or the YouTube channel is much appreciated. As with most coaches and players, I am completely obsessed with football. I'm fascinated by people's careers, who they've played with or coached, and what they've won. Having now moved into coaching myself and having attained a certain level when I was a player, my fascination remained, but has also expanded into what others read or watch. I'm not talking about coaching books or analysing of systems, but general football programming or reading material. So I've compiled a list of films and documentaries as well as books on football and the people involved in football. There are many that I have read or watched that I've missed off of this list, and there are many more I haven't seen at all, so please feel free to suggest any documentaries or books in the comments or reach out to me on Twitter. Charting the life of one of football's greatest, Bobby takes us from Moore's childhood in Essex to his death in 1993. As one of my idols as a footballer, it was encouraging to see that he would overcome the doubts as to whether he'd progress into the West Ham first team due to his physical attributes. Gifted with an exceptional ability to read the game, it's not very hard to see how high Moore would rise, from making his first professional appearance in September 1958 to winning the World Cup in '66, fighting off testicular cancer in 1964, as well as winning that season's FA Cup, which would lead to West Ham taking home the 1965 edition of the European Cup Winners' Cup. All three finals were held at Wembley. Told by those closest to him and rife with anecdotes, it's a phenomenal documentary about a phenomenal man. Of course, let's not forget that tackle on Jairzinho. A wonderful portrait of one of English football's most successful managers, Sir Bobby Robson. From extraordinarily humble beginnings in the northeast of England, this beautiful film follows the career of Robson and is narrated by the man himself, with the help of family and those he worked within football. Dealing with relegation to the second division and sacking by Fulham in 1968, Robson would take charge of Ipswich Town in the following year. Thus, he would build his reputation in the 13 seasons as the club's manager, finishing in the top 6 of the First Division 8 times in 9 seasons and capturing an FA Cup and UEFA Cup in 78 and 81 respectively. 8 years with England would culminate with the tears of Turin and media backlash following his agreement to sign with PSV Eindhoven. Following 9 years flitting around Europe and winning trophies in Holland, Portugal and Spain, Robson's final job as a manager would be of the club he loved, Newcastle United. Nottingham Forest was languishing in mid-table of the second division when the greatest managerial pairing in football took charge in January 1975. In a matter of 5 years, Clough and Taylor had built a team that won promotion to the top flight and would win 2 successive European Cups in 1979 and 80. Told by the players, including John Robertson, Peter Shilton, John McGovern, English football's first £1 million player, Trevor Francis, full of antics that would only come from the likes of Brian Clough, as well as a strange little story of Peter Shilton having to train on a roundabout. This film is a great look back at the pinnacle of English domination of European club football. Based on the 2006 novel with the same name, The Damned United focuses on managerial rivals Brian Clough and Don Revie. Starting with Clough's rise to managerial fame with Derby County, it highlights the blossoming rivalry between Clough and then Leeds manager Don Revie. Following his departure from Derby and a brief stint at Brighton, the film then follows Clough's infamous 44 days as Leeds manager. Alienation of the dressing room and a vote of no confidence would lead to Clough's dismissal from Elland Road. If you want something accurate, then this film and the novel may not be for you. However, it's an exciting and entertaining look into a defining moment of a legendary manager's career. Plus, it offers up a recreation of the great interview between Clough and Revie on our TV Yorkshire programme, Calendar. Following Manchester City in their 2017-18 campaign, which saw them win the League and League Cup double and break a host of records in doing so, this was also Pep's first 2 trophies in English football. In what was the headline series of a new age of these behind-the-scenes documentaries, All or Nothing shows off the daily demands that Pep places on his players and the constant intensity with which they operate. Topped off with terrific narration by Sir Ben Kingsley, it's a fascinating look behind the doors of one of the biggest and modern clubs in English football. Fresh from relegation to the second tier, having finally been caught after years of near misses, Sunderland aimed to return to the Premier League at the first attempt. It would, of course, turn into a nightmare as they would gradually slip into League One. Another great documentary, and probably the first I've seen that hasn't ended with silverware or success, told through various members at the Stadium of Light, from the boardroom to the dressing room to the kitchen, an encompassing series for a hotbed of football in England. From one football landscape in the shape of Sunderland to the intoxicating intensity of Italian football, namely Turin. This series opens the doors to the passion and excitement of the Serie A, with the reigning Italian champions Juventus. This season will culminate with a League and Cup double. The intensity that Allegri works at is reminiscent of Pep Guardiola, and his viewpoint on the fact that there's nothing normal about winning a singular match or a title is only heightened by the fact he has won 14 trophies in his managerial career. The most recent release of everything listed here, this Netflix series follows Diego Maradona's time in Mexico as manager of second division side Dorados. If you can look past the terrible American dubbing, then this series is very fascinating. The whirlwind around Maradona's arrival and spell in Mexico are expected, but his effects on that squad is incredible. What would be interesting would be to see the level of involvement he had with regards to training and the team's tactics. His involvement and the impact on the players are clear to see, as well as being almost instant, perhaps underlining the human element to coaching. What is quite sobering is his admission and wonder at how much of a better player he could have been had he not fallen victim to the vices that plagued him. Football is without a doubt the greatest sport on the planet and has the power to connect and unite people from all backgrounds. Perhaps there is no better example than Neil Baldwin. A Stoke City supporter from Newcastle-under-Lyme, Baldwin has lived an unbelievable life, from being a clown to helping students at Keele University for decades to being appointed as Stoke City kitman by former Scotland and Manchester United player Lou Macari in the 90s. Neil would also go on to make a brief substitute appearance in a testimonial for Gordon Cowans, a heartwarming film about one of the greatest stories in football. Neil was also awarded the British Empire Medal in the 2019 New Year's Honours List for services to the community. From selling flowers in New York City to leading India in front of tens of thousands, with pit stops along the way like Millwall, Malawi and Sudan, it's safe to say that Stephen Constantine has had quite the journey. Packed full of anecdotes from coaching and life, Constantine, with the help of Owen Amos, constructs an excellent book that was even shortlisted for the Football Writers Association Book of the Year in 2018. Ever heard of Pompeii? Neither had I until I got my hands on this book, and before I go any further, it is categorically not the city of Pompeii. Having to deal with the severe tropical weather and toad-infested pitches, this book follows Paul Watson and Matt Conrad's journey to the other side of the world to become international football coaches. Culminating with a tour to Guam, their journey and story is an incredible read that truly highlights the beautiful game. An insight into the mindsets of football managers from across all levels of the professional game in England, focusing in on those at the highest levels such as Brendan Rodgers and Ellen Pardew, to the next wave of coaches led by the likes of Eddie Howe and Carl Robinson. Living on the Volcano delves deep into what drives these men and tries to find the reasoning behind why they do what they do, not shying away from the psychological effects that football management has on people, with interviews with the likes of Martin Ling, and an illuminating read into the professional game. So that wraps up this list that I've compiled of my favourite documentaries and books. So what do you think? Do you agree with this list, or are there any suggestions that you think I need to watch or read? If there are, please feel free to leave them in the comments below or reach out to me via Twitter. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you've enjoyed your short stay with me, and I hope to see you in the next one.